Hello, everyone. This is your host, Vaughn Kinston, and welcome to the Kinston's Perspective, where we stay informed and continue to grow. Now, I just want to talk about the subject of defunding the police. What does defunding the police mean? What is the ideology behind that movement of defunding the police and setting up a socialistic Karl Marx perspective as our country, uh, in a sense, abandons the Judeo Christian perspective, which it was founded upon, the Judeo Christian, i.e., biblical perspective that has built our country. So, without any further ado, I just want to get into this. Now, I come from a Judeo Christian perspective, so that's my measuring stick. That's the lens on how I view and interact in the world. You may have a different perspective, you may have a different worldview. And I'm not saying I'm perfect or I reach those ideals, but that's the measuring stick and that's my ideal that I aspire to be and emphasizes the Christian worldview or the Judeo Christian worldview. So, in the Judeo Christian worldview, we understand the problem of evil, right? Our perspective, whether you agree or disagree with it, is that God made Adam and Eve and he put them in the Garden of Eden. And they had the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And they weren't supposed to eat of that tree. So they ate from the tree. The devil gave them a choice. They decided to not listen to God, and they ate from the tree of good and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, fast forwarding that, we have to deal with the problem of evil. We, each and every one of us, whether you disagree or agree, we have the propensity or we have the capability to do good and evil. People can do good things, they can do evil things. People can do right, the things that are right and the things that are wrong. And we have to have laws in place, i.e., the Ten Commandments, which comes later. The Ten Commandments, if you go down the list of the Ten Commandments, I want you to look that up on your own time. It talks about dealing with the problem of evil. It talks about individual rights. It talks about property rights. It talks about not killing, not stealing, things that are supposed to be rudimentary, right? And that has built societies. If you look at all the laws we have today, they have that concept behind them. Before we started taking down these statues, we took down the statues that I think there was in Alabama. We took down Blackstone, which the law of nature and nature's God. Basically, we started taking down the statue the monuments and statues of Judeo-Christian thought, and then things proceeded after that. But I digress. So you're either coming from a perspective that evil does not exist, or evil does exist, and we have to have checks and balances in place. If you look at our government, whether you're coming from a parliamentary system or you're coming from a bicameral system like ours is, where you have a judicial, you have a legislative, you have an executive, and neither of those branches can overstep the other without a check and balance in place. Because we're addressing that people ultimately can be led to pure evil if not checked and balanced. So that's why you have dictatorships out there where one person or a small group of people dictate everything to society, and you see how those can go bad, right? I Show me a good dictatorship that worked out for its people. You have kings and queens. That wasn't perfect either. You either had a good king or a bad king. You either had a good queen or a bad queen. It was a flip of the coin, right? So we kind of have something better through trial and error, through wars, through famine, through revolutions. you name it. We've come up with this, and that's what America became, an ideal. Did America, when they made the Constitution, always lived up to that all men are created equal? No, but it was an ideal that we later had to had to face, and that was through the Civil War and the outcome of that. So, what do we do now with this whole movement of defunding the police? Let's say you get rid. I'm gonna play devil's advocate and let's say give the people what they want. If you want to defund the police, that's fine. But you have to have something in this place. You have to have something in this place that checks the problem of evil. We have a nation, whether you agree or not, that you have the right to bear arms. So that if your government becomes tyrannical, right? If your government becomes a tyranny, which they knew because they understood the Judeo-Christian perspective, the individual has a right to form up with other individuals and meet that challenge. So you have a nation that's full of guns, right? So a social worker or whatever worker or holistic worker is not going to address the problem of evil. I'm sorry. That's just not going to happen unless they are armed. So you have to have someone who understands the laws that are any society you build is going to have laws. People are going to have to get on the same page, or it's going to be something that is very chaotic, right? Where might makes right. The strongest person, the will of the strong dictates the will of the weak. Just want to leave you with that, just something to think about. You have to address the problem of evil. You have to address the sanctity of life. You have to address rights, and that can be categorized into individual as well as property rights. And how does that coincide with the mass, with the majority? If you have a majority ruled perspective, right? That's saying you have a group of wolves and a lamb, and who's going to decide what's going to be for dinner? You have to address the problem of evil.